Louise is the daughter of a police officer killed in the line of duty, and now she faces a threat that only the feared Mafia boss Marco Montana can solve. He agrees to help her, but demands an impossible price: a forced marriage. Louise swears she will never bow to the man who represents everything her father fought against. But Marco has plans that go far beyond a simple agreement. If you've ever wondered whether love can bloom in the darkest places, or if redemption is possible for those who've lost everything, this story will take you on an emotional journey you won't forget. Drop a like, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. Bound Honor. The rain hammered against the cracked window of Louise Bennett's apartment like bullets, each drop a reminder of the storm brewing inside her chest. She stared at the eviction notice on her kitchen table, the red letters screaming 30 days until everything she had left of her father would be ripped away. 3 months since Detective James Bennett had been gunned down during what should have been a routine traffic stop. 3 months since Louise's world had shattered into 1,000 irreparable pieces. And now this. The landlord wanted her out because she couldn't keep up with rent while paying for her father's funeral and her younger brother's medical bills. 14-year-old Danny had cerebral palsy and needed expensive therapy sessions that insurance barely covered. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Louise almost ignored it, but something made her answer. "Miss Bennett?" The voice was smooth, cultured, dangerous. "My name is Victor Kane. I represent someone who can help with your current situation." Louise's blood ran cold. "I don't need help from criminals. Your brother needs his medication, doesn't he? The seizure medication that costs $4,000 a month. How did he know that?" "What do you want?" "Not me. My employer. Marco Montana would like to meet with you. Tonight, 9 o'clock, the Crimson Rose downtown." Louise's heart stopped. Marco Montana. The name whispered in police stations with a mixture of fear and grudging respect. The platinum-haired devil who ran half the city's underground operations yet had never spent a single day in jail. The man her father had sworn to bring down before a bullet ended that promise. "I'm not meeting with a mob boss." "Then your brother's medication runs out in 3 days. Your eviction stands." "And those men who've been following you for the past week? They work for someone much less reasonable than Mr. Montana. He's offering protection, Miss Bennett. I suggest you take it." The line went dead. Louise's hand shook as she set down the phone. Men following her? She'd noticed the black sedan. The same one that appeared outside Danny's physical therapy clinic, outside the grocery store, outside her apartment building. She'd told herself it was paranoia, grief making her see threats everywhere. But if Marco Montana knew about them, they were real. And if they were real, Danny was in danger. At 8:45, Louise stood outside the Crimson Rose, a high-end restaurant that probably charged more for an appetizer than she made in a week. She wore the only decent dress she owned, black and simple, the one she'd worn to her father's funeral. Rain soaked through her thin jacket as she pushed through the ornate doors. The hostess took one look at her and frowned. "I'm sorry, but we require reservations and a dress code." "She's with me." The voice came from behind Louise, deep and commanding. She turned and her breath caught. Marco Montana stood 6 feet away, and he was nothing like the grainy surveillance photos she'd seen in her father's case files. He was younger than she'd expected, early 30s, with platinum blonde hair slicked back perfectly. A small tattoo marked the skin above his left eyebrow, and intricate ink decorated his hands, visible even with the massive diamond rings adorning his fingers. A thick gold chain with an ornate cross pendant rested against the crisp white shirt beneath his tailored black suit. No tie. He looked like a fallen angel, beautiful and lethal in equal measure. "Miss Bennett." His ice-blue eyes held hers with an intensity that made her want to run. "Shall we?" He gestured toward a private room in the back. Louise forced her feet to move, following him past tables of wealthy diners who averted their eyes. They knew who he was. Everyone knew. The private room was elegant, with dark wood paneling and a single table set for 2. Marco pulled out her chair with unexpected courtesy before taking his own seat across from her. "You're afraid of me," he observed, his rings catching the candlelight as he reached for a glass of wine. Good. Fear means you're smart. I'm not afraid. Louise lifted her chin. I'm disgusted. You're everything my father fought against. Something flickered in his eyes. Amusement, respect. Detective James Bennett, a good man by all accounts. His death was unfortunate. Unfortunate? Louise's voice rose. He was murdered. By the Volkov Bratva, not by me. Marco's voice remained calm. Your father was investigating a weapons smuggling operation. He got too close to the Russians, and they eliminated the threat. I had nothing to do with it. You're all the same. Criminals who destroy lives and call it business. Perhaps. Marco leaned back, studying her with those unsettling blue eyes. But right now, I'm the only thing standing between you and those same Russians. They think your father told you something before he died, something about their operation. They're wrong. But they won't believe that until they've tortured it out of you. The room spun. I don't know anything. I know, but Dmitry Volkov doesn't care. He'll hurt you, hurt your brother, until he's satisfied you're telling the truth. Then he'll kill you both anyway, just to be thorough. Louise's nails dug into her palms. Why do you care? Why help me? Because it serves my interests. The Volkovs are pushing into my territory, starting a war I don't want. If I protect you, it sends a message. You're under my protection, which means touching you means war with me. They'll back off. And what do you want in return? This was it. The price. Marco's lips curved into something that might have been a smile. Marriage. Louise laughed. It burst out of her, sharp and hysterical. You're insane. I'm practical. I need a wife, someone presentable, educated, with no ties to my world. Someone who can help legitimize my public image while I work on expanding my business interests into legal territories. Find someone else. I want you. The words were absolute, leaving no room for argument. Your father was a respected detective. You have a clean record, a degree in social work. You volunteer at the Children's Hospital. You're perfect. I'm the daughter of a cop who dedicated his life to putting people like you behind bars. Exactly. Marco's eyes gleamed. What better way to show the world that Marco Montana is reforming than to marry the daughter of the detective who hunted him? It's poetic. Louise stood abruptly, the chair scraping against the floor. I'd rather die than marry you. Then you'll die. And so will Danny. Marco remained seated, his tone conversational. The Russians will come for you within the week. Without my protection, you won't last a month. I'll go to the police. With what? A story about the Mafia threatening you? You think they have the resources to provide round-the-clock protection for you and your disabled brother? You think they'll believe that Marco Montana offered to help you? Marco stood now, moving around the table with predatory grace. He stopped inches from her, close enough that she could smell his expensive cologne. See the flecks of silver in those blue eyes. I'm offering you a deal, Louise. 1 year of marriage. You play the loving wife in public, help me rebuild my reputation. In return, I pay off all your debts, cover Danny's medical expenses for life, and keep both of you alive. After 1 year, we divorce quietly. You get a settlement that will set you up for the rest of your life. And what about what I want? My dignity? My father's memory? Your father is dead. The words were harsh, but not cruel. And his memory won't keep you or your brother alive. Pride is a luxury you can't afford right now, Miss Bennett. Louise felt tears burning her eyes, but refused to let them fall. He was right, and she hated him for it. Hated him for being her only option. Hated him for standing there looking like some dark prince while offering her a devil's bargain. I won't bow to you, she whispered. I'll marry you if I have to, but I will never respect you. Never trust you. Never forget what you are. Marco's hand lifted, and Louise flinched. But he only tucked a strand of wet hair behind her ear, his touch surprisingly gentle. I don't need your respect or trust, Louise. I just need you to play your part. Can you do that? Can you put aside your principles for 1 year to save your brother? Danny's face flashed in her mind, his lopsided smile, his determination to walk unassisted despite the pain, his dreams of becoming a writer someday, everything he'd never achieve if the Russians got to them. Yes, Louise forced the word out. I'll do it. Good. Marco stepped back. All business now. My lawyers will draw up a contract. The wedding is in 2 weeks. You and Danny will move into my estate immediately for your safety. 2 weeks? That's impossible. Nothing is impossible when you have enough money and motivation. I have both. Marco moved to the door, then paused. One more thing, Louise. Once we're married, you will show me the respect due a husband in public. You'll smile, touch me, play the devoted wife convincingly. In private, you can hate me all you want, but if you embarrass me in front of my associates, there will be consequences. Is that a threat? It's a promise. His smile was cold. I may be offering you protection, but I'm still the monster your father warned you about. Don't ever forget that. He left her standing there, shaking with anger and fear and a strange, disturbing awareness of how her life had just been sold to the devil himself. Outside, Victor Kane waited by a black Mercedes. Take Miss Bennett and her brother to the estate. Make sure they're comfortable. Post guards. If anyone so much as looks at them wrong, you know what to do. Yes, sir. Victor's expression remained neutral. Marco watched Louise exit the restaurant, her shoulders squared despite her obvious fear. She had fire, this daughter of a detective. It would make breaking her all the more interesting. Or perhaps, a small voice whispered in the back of his mind, she might be the one to break him instead. If you want to know what happens next, hit that like button and drop a comment with your thoughts. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the next chapter of this story. The Montana estate sprawled across 20 acres of manicured lawns, security fences, and enough armed guards to invade a small country. Louise clutched Danny's hand as Victor Kane drove them through the imposing front gates, her brother's eyes wide with a mixture of fear and wonder. Lou, this place is huge, Danny whispered, his speech slightly slurred from his condition. Are we really going to live here? Just for a little while, buddy. Louise tried to keep her voice steady. It's temporary. Miss Bennett. Victor's eyes met hers in the rearview mirror. Mr. Montana has arranged for your brother to have the East Wing suite. It's wheelchair accessible and has been equipped with all the medical equipment his therapists recommended. How does he know what equipment Danny needs? Mr. Montana is very thorough. He obtained your brother's medical records and consulted with 3 specialists to ensure everything would be ready. Louise didn't know whether to be grateful or terrified. Probably both. The main house was a modern masterpiece of glass and stone. All clean lines and expensive taste. Inside, the foyer alone was larger than her entire apartment. A woman in her 50s approached, her expression kind but professional. I'm Mrs. Chen, the house manager. I'll show you to your rooms. Danny's suite was incredible. Hospital bed, Hoyer lift, adaptive computer station, even a therapy room with parallel bars and exercise equipment. Her brother's face lit up in a way Louise hadn't seen since before their father died. This is amazing. Danny wheeled himself to the window overlooking gardens that seemed to stretch forever. Lou, look at the pool. Do you think I could swim? We'll ask. Louise's throat tightened. She'd been trying for months to afford the aquatic therapy Danny's doctors recommended, but it cost $300 per session. Now Marco Montana had given her brother a private pool. Your suite is connected through this door, Mrs. Chen indicated. Mr. Montana thought you'd want to be close to your brother. Louise's room was elegant and surprisingly tasteful. Soft grays and whites, a massive bed, a balcony overlooking the grounds, and an adjoining door that presumably led to Marco's quarters. She tested it, locked from his side. Mr. Montana respects your privacy, Mrs. Chen said quietly. That door will remain locked unless you choose to open it from your side. Small mercy. After Mrs. Chen left, Louise helped Danny settle in, her mind racing. This was her life now, living in luxury paid for by blood money, married to a criminal, betraying everything her father stood for. Lou? Danny's voice pulled her from dark thoughts. Are you okay? Yeah, buddy, just tired. This Marco guy. Danny's expression turned serious, more mature than his 14 years. Dad would hate this. I know. But he'd also want us alive, and he'd want me to have my medication. Danny reached for her hand. Don't feel guilty, Lou. You're doing what you have to do. Dad would understand that. Louise kissed her brother's forehead, fighting tears. When had Danny become the strong one? That night, Louise couldn't sleep. She wandered the massive house, feeling like an intruder in a museum. She found herself in a library, walls lined with books from floor to ceiling. Can't sleep? The voice made her jump. Marco stood in the doorway, still wearing his suit pants but having traded the jacket and shirt for a simple black t-shirt. The casual clothes should have made him less intimidating. They didn't. The tattoos on his arms were visible now, intricate designs that probably held meaning she didn't want to know. I'm not used to strange places, Louise said stiffly. You'll adjust. Marco moved to a bar cart, pouring amber liquid into 2 glasses. Bourbon? It helps. I don't drink with criminals. You're going to marry one. Might as well start somewhere. He held out the glass. After a moment's hesitation, Louise took it. The bourbon burned going down, but settled her nerves. They stood in uncomfortable silence, the air thick with unspoken tension. Why me? Louise finally asked. You could have any woman. Why force someone who hates you? Marco's laugh was hollow. Because the women who want me do so for my money or my power. You're the first person in years to look at me with honest disgust. It's refreshing. That's sick. That's my life. Marco moved to the window. I've been the monster for so long I can't remember what it was like to be anything else. Your father understood that, actually. Louise's head snapped up. What? We met once, 3 years ago. He pulled me over for speeding, of all things. Could have arrested me. He had enough probable cause. Instead, he gave me a warning and said something I've never forgotten. Marco's voice softened. He said, You're not as bad as you pretend to be, Mr. Montana. Someday you'll figure that out. My father wouldn't have said that to you. But he did. Marco turned to face her. And maybe he was right. Maybe there's some part of me that could be redeemed. That's what this marriage is really about, Louise. Not just my public image. It's a test. To see if someone good and pure like you can survive in my world without becoming corrupted. And to see if someone like me can be influenced by that goodness. I'm not your redemption project. No. But maybe we're each other's survival. You keep me human, I keep you alive. Seems like a fair trade. Louise wanted to argue, but exhaustion weighed on her. I should get back to Danny. As she moved past Marco, his hand caught her wrist. Not rough, but firm. Louise, I know you hate me, but I'm going to keep my promises to you. Your brother will be safe, healthy, and happy. You'll never want for anything. All I ask is that you give me a chance to prove I'm not the monster you think I am. You're exactly the monster I think you are. Louise pulled away. But you're a monster who's keeping my brother alive, so I'll play my part. Just don't expect me to like it. I wouldn't dream of it. But there was something in his eyes, something almost like respect, that followed her out of the room. The next 2 weeks blurred together in a nightmare of wedding preparations. Louise was fitted for a dress she never wanted, learned to smile for photographers she despised, and endured meeting after meeting with Marco's associates who looked at her like she was either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. The wedding was set for Saturday at Marco's estate, small, intimate, only 100 guests. All criminals, Louise thought bitterly. All people her father would have arrested given the chance. Danny, at least, was thriving. The therapists Marco hired came daily, and her brother's strength was already improving. He laughed more, smiled more. He even started writing again, working on the novel he'd abandoned after their father's death. He's good for Danny, Louise admitted to herself one evening, watching Marco teach her brother to play chess in the garden. Marco was patient, explaining strategies without condescension, celebrating Danny's victories with genuine enthusiasm. He's smart, your brother, Marco said later when Danny had gone to bed. You're doing right by him. I'm selling myself to a criminal for him. You're sacrificing your pride to give him a future. There's a difference. Marco poured himself a drink. Your father did the same thing, you know. Worked himself to death because he believed in protecting people who couldn't protect themselves. You're not so different from him. Don't you dare compare us. Why not? You're both willing to do whatever it takes to protect the innocent. His methods were legal, yours aren't. But the heart of it, the same. Louise wanted to hit him, wanted to scream that he knew nothing about her father, nothing about duty or honor or sacrifice. But she saw something in his eyes that stopped her. Loneliness. This powerful, terrifying man was desperately, utterly alone. Friday night, the night before the wedding, Louise found Marco in his study, surrounded by papers and looking more exhausted than she'd ever seen him. "You should sleep," she said from the doorway. "Can't. Too much to do." Marco rubbed his eyes. "The Volkovs are pushing harder. 3 of my shipments hit this week. They're testing me. Is Danny safe?" "Danny's safe. So are you. I've tripled security." Marco looked up at her. "Second thoughts about tomorrow?" "About 1,000 of them." Louise moved into the room. "But I made a deal. I keep my promises. Your father raised you well." "He did, which is why this kills me. He spent his life fighting men like you, and here I am, about to become your wife." Marco stood, moving to stand before her. Up close, she could see the weariness in his eyes, the weight he carried. "Do you know what your father's last case was?" "The one that got him killed." Louise shook her head. "He was investigating a human trafficking ring. The Volkovs were bringing in women and children from Eastern Europe, selling them to the highest bidder. Your father found the location of one of their warehouses and went in alone. Too impatient to wait for backup, he freed 18 people that night before the Russians caught up to him." Tears streamed down Louise's face. She hadn't known. The official report said it was a routine traffic stop gone wrong. He died saving people. Marco continued softly. "That's the man he was. And you're his daughter in every way that matters. You hate what I am, but you're willing to marry me to save Danny. That's the same courage, the same love. Don't think for a moment that you're betraying him. Louise, you're honoring him by protecting what he loved most, his family." Louise broke down then, all the grief and fear and guilt crashing over her. And Marco did something unexpected. He pulled her into his arms and let her cry, one hand stroking her hair with surprising gentleness. "I'm scared," Louise whispered against his chest. "I know. But I've got you, both of you, I promise." For just a moment, Louise let herself believe him. Did this story touch your heart? Show some love with a like, share your favorite moment in the comments, and subscribe to join our storytelling family. The morning of the wedding, Louise woke to find Danny in her room, sitting in his wheelchair by the window. "You okay, buddy?" She sat up, rubbing sleep from her eyes. "Are you?" Danny turned to face her. "Lou, you don't have to do this. We could run. Leave the city, start over somewhere else." "With what money? And how long before the Russians find us?" Louise moved to sit beside him. "This is the only way." "Danny, but you're miserable. I can see it. I'm alive. You're alive. That's what matters." Louise took his hand. "Besides, maybe it won't be so bad. Marco seems to actually care about keeping his promises. He's different than I expected." Danny's brow furrowed. "He doesn't treat me like I'm broken. Most adults do. They use that voice. You know, all sympathy and pity. But Marco just talks to me like I'm normal. You are normal. You know what I mean." Danny squeezed her hand. "I'm just saying, maybe he's not as bad as Dad thought. Maybe people can change. Maybe." But Louise wasn't ready to believe that yet. The ceremony was at 2 o'clock in the estate's garden. Louise stood before a full-length mirror, barely recognizing herself. The dress was elegant, simple white silk that flowed like water. Her dark hair was styled in loose curls. She looked like a bride. She felt like a sacrifice. "You're beautiful, Miss Bennett." Mrs. Chen stood in the doorway. "Mr. Montana is a lucky man. He's a criminal who bought a wife. He's a man who's trying to change. Don't underestimate the power of a good woman's influence." Mrs. Chen smiled. "My late husband was not a good man when I married him. But love and patience can transform even the hardest heart. I don't love Marco. Not yet. But you might, if you give him a chance." Louise doubted that, but she kept silent. At 1:55, Victor Kane appeared to escort her downstairs. "Your brother is already seated." He wanted me to tell you he's proud of you." Louise's eyes burned, but she refused to cry and ruin her makeup. The garden was transformed into something from a fairy tale, white flowers everywhere. String quartet playing softly. But the guests were all men in expensive suits with cold eyes and weapons barely concealed under their jackets. This was no fairy tale. This was a mob wedding. Marco stood beneath an arch of roses, and Louise's breath caught despite herself. He wore a black suit tailored to perfection, his platinum hair gleaming in the sunlight, the tattoos on his hands, the rings, the gold cross pendant all visible. He looked like what he was, dangerous, powerful, untouchable. But when their eyes met, something flickered in his expression, vulnerability, as if he was just as terrified as she was. The ceremony was brief. Louise barely heard the officiant's words, too focused on Marco's hands holding hers. His grip was firm but not crushing, his rings cold against her skin. "Do you, Louise Ann Bennett, take Marco Antonio Montana to be your lawfully wedded husband?" This was it, her last chance to run. But she looked past the arch and saw Danny, beaming despite everything, hope shining in his eyes. "I do." Her voice was steady. "And do you, Marco Antonio Montana, take Louise Ann Bennett to be your lawfully wedded wife?" Marco's blue eyes never left hers. "I do. You may kiss the bride." Marco's hand lifted to cup her cheek, his thumb brushing her skin with unexpected tenderness. Then he leaned in and kissed her. Louise expected it to be cold, perfunctory. Instead, it was soft, almost reverent. His lips moved against hers with a gentleness that shocked her. For a moment, she forgot to breathe, forgot to think, forgot everything except the warmth of his mouth and the way her heart hammered against her ribs. When he pulled back, she saw surprise in his eyes too, as if he'd felt something he hadn't expected. Applause erupted. Marco's associates stood, clapping and whistling. Danny was crying happy tears. And Louise was now Mrs. Marco Montana, wife to the most dangerous man in the city. The reception was held in the estate's ballroom. Louise smiled until her face ached, shook hands with criminals, and pretended her world wasn't crumbling. Marco stayed close, his hand always at her back or holding hers, playing the devoted husband perfectly. "You're doing well," he murmured during their first dance. The string quartet played something slow and romantic. Marco held her close, moving with surprising grace. "I feel like a fraud. We're all frauds here. You're just better at hiding it." His lips quirked. "You haven't stepped on my feet once. That's impressive given you told me yesterday you can't dance." "My mother taught me before she died. She loved old movies where couples would waltz." "Tell me about her." "Why?" "Because I want to know you. Is that so strange?" It was strange, coming from him. But Louise found herself talking, telling him about her mother's laugh, her kindness, her fierce love for her family. Marco listened intently, never interrupting, his blue eyes focused entirely on her. "She sounds wonderful," he said when Louise finished. "She would have hated you." "Probably." Marco smiled, and it reached his eyes for the first time. "But she would have loved that you're taking care of Danny. That's what matters." As the evening wore on, Louise watched Marco interact with his guests. He was charming, confident, but there was an edge to every interaction. A reminder that beneath the elegant suit was a predator. At one point, a man approached, older, 50s, with scars on his knuckles and dead eyes. "Montana, congratulations on the wedding. Beautiful bride." "Thank you, Petrov." Marco's voice was cold. "I don't believe you were invited. Just paying respects and warning you. The Volkovs aren't backing down. Your protection of the detective's daughter has consequences. Let them come." Marco's hand tightened on Louise's waist. "Anyone who touches my wife answers to me personally." Petrov's smile was all teeth. "Loyal. I respect that. Just remember, loyalty has costs." He walked away, leaving a chill in his wake. "Who was that?" Louise whispered. "Alexei Petrov, Russian enforcer. He's testing me, seeing if I'll crack under pressure." Marco's jaw clenched. "I won't." "Because of your reputation?" "Because of you." Marco looked down at her. You're mine now, Louise, and I protect what's mine. The possessiveness should have terrified her. Instead, something warm unfurled in her chest. Security, maybe. Or something more dangerous. At midnight, the guests finally left. Danny was already asleep, exhausted but happy. Mrs. Chen had helped him to bed hours ago. Louise stood on the balcony off her bedroom, still in her wedding dress, trying to process everything. The door connecting her room to Marco's opened. He stood there, having removed his jacket and tie, his shirt unbuttoned at the collar. May I come in? Louise nodded, too drained to argue. Marco stepped onto the balcony, keeping a respectful distance. Today went well. You were perfect. I was a good actress. No. Marco's voice was firm. You were genuine. That's what made it work. People could see you're real, not some paid model. It's already working, Louise. 3 major investors reached out tonight wanting to discuss legitimate business ventures. Your influence is exactly what I needed. Glad I could help your criminal empire. The bitterness in her voice was thick. I deserve that. Marco leaned against the railing. But I meant what I said today. You're under my protection now. Nothing will hurt you or Danny. I swear it on my life. Your promises mean nothing to me. Then I'll have to earn your trust. Marco pushed off the railing. This door stays unlocked now, not because I expect anything, but because you're my wife and I want you to feel you can come to me if you need anything. Safety, help, just someone to talk to. I know you hate me, but we're bound together now. Might as well make it bearable. He started to leave, then paused. Your father was right, you know. I'm not as bad as I pretend to be. I've done terrible things. Things I can never take back. But maybe with you, I can start doing better things. Better enough that someday when you look at me, you won't see just a monster. Before Louise could respond, he was gone, the door closing softly behind him. Louise stood alone on the balcony, her wedding ring heavy on her finger, and wondered if Marco Montana was capable of redemption, or if she was foolish enough to hope he could be. Either way, she was bound to him now, for better or worse, and something told her this marriage was about to become far more complicated than a simple business arrangement. Enjoying the story? Smash that like button. Tell me what you think in the comments below, and hit subscribe for more incredible tales like this one. 3 weeks into the marriage, Louise woke to screaming. She bolted upright, heart hammering, and realized it was coming from Marco's room. Without thinking, she threw open the connecting door and found him tangled in sheets, thrashing violently, words in Italian pouring from his lips. Marco! She approached cautiously. Marco, wake up. His eyes snapped open, wild and unfocused. In one fluid motion, he had her pinned against the wall, his hand around her throat. Not squeezing, but the threat was clear. Then recognition flooded his face. He released her immediately, stumbling back. Louise. God. I'm sorry. I was dreaming. He ran shaking hands through his hair. Are you hurt? I'm fine. Louise rubbed her throat. What were you dreaming about? Nothing. It's nothing. But his hands wouldn't stop shaking. Louise saw something she'd never expected to see in Marco Montana. Fear. Real. Bone-deep terror. It didn't sound like nothing. She moved closer, slowly, like approaching a wounded animal. You were speaking Italian. Something about fire and a woman's name. Julia. Marco's face went white. He sank onto the edge of the bed, head in his hands. You should go back to your room. Or you could tell me what's haunting you. Louise surprised herself by sitting beside him. We're married, Marco. For better or worse, remember? That includes nightmares. For a long moment, silence. Then Marco's voice came, broken and raw. Julia was my sister, 5 years younger than me. The only family I had left after our parents died. Louise's heart clenched. She wanted out of the family business, wanted to go to college, become a doctor, live a normal life. I promised I'd let her go, that I'd keep her safe while she pursued her dreams. Marco's hands fisted in the sheets. The Volkovs found out about her, used her to get to me. They locked her in a warehouse and set it on fire. I got there too late. I heard her screaming my name and I couldn't save her. I couldn't save my own sister. Tears streamed down his face, and Louise realized this was the real Marco. Not the cold mob boss, not the calculating criminal. Just a broken man carrying guilt that would never fade. How old was she? 19. She'd just been accepted to Stanford Medical School. Marco's voice cracked. She died screaming for me, and I couldn't reach her. The door was chained. By the time I broke through, she was already gone. Louise did something she never thought she'd do. She wrapped her arms around Marco Montana and held him while he shattered. His body shook with sobs, years of buried grief pouring out. I'm sorry, Louise whispered. I'm so sorry. I killed them all. Marco's voice was muffled against her shoulder. Every single person involved in her death. I hunted them down one by one and made them pay. That's when I became the monster your father was hunting. Before Julia, I was just a low-level enforcer. After her, I became something else, something worse. You became someone destroyed by grief who didn't know how to process it. Louise pulled back to look at him. That doesn't excuse what you did, but it explains it. You're not a monster, Marco. You're just human, flawed and broken like the rest of us. You don't know the things I've done. You're right, but I know what you're doing now. Taking care of Danny, keeping your promises, trying to change. That has to count for something. Marco's hand lifted to her cheek, his touch gentle despite the violence those hands had committed. You're too good for this world, Louise Bennett. It's Louise Montana now. She smiled sadly. Like it or not. Something shifted in Marco's expression. His thumb traced her lower lip, his blue eyes darkening with an emotion Louise couldn't quite name. Desire, maybe. Or something deeper. I should go, she whispered, but she didn't move. You should, Marco agreed. But his hand slid into her hair. They were inches apart now. Louise could feel his breath on her lips, see the war in his eyes. He wanted to kiss her. She should pull away, maintain the distance, remember who and what he was. Instead, she closed the gap. The kiss was soft at first, tentative, both of them testing boundaries. Then Marco's control snapped. He pulled her closer, deepening the kiss with a hunger that stole her breath. Louise kissed him back just as fiercely, her hands fisting in his t-shirt. It was wrong, so wrong. But it felt more right than anything had in months. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Marco rested his forehead against hers. This complicates things. Everything about us is complicated. Louise's heart hammered. What are we doing? I don't know, but I don't want to stop. Marco's hand cupped her face. Louise, you make me want to be better, want to deserve you. That terrifies me because I know I never will. Then try anyway. The words escaped before Louise could stop them. Try to be better, not for me, but for yourself, for Julia's memory. Marco's eyes closed. When they opened, they were filled with something Louise had never seen before. Hope. Stay with me tonight. Just sleep. I don't want to be alone with the nightmares. Louise knew she should refuse. Knew this was crossing a line they couldn't uncross. But she nodded and they lay down together, his arms wrapping around her protectively. For the first time since their wedding, Louise felt safe. And Marco, for the first time since Julia's death, felt something other than guilt. The next morning, Louise woke to find Marco already gone. A note on his pillow read, "Meeting with lawyers about the Volkov situation. Back by dinner. M." She shouldn't feel disappointed. This was a business arrangement, nothing more. Except last night had felt like something more. Louise spent the day with Danny, helping him with physical therapy and listening to him read chapters from his novel. Her brother was thriving here, growing stronger every day. That alone made this worthwhile. At 7, Marco still wasn't home. At 8, Louise started to worry. At 9, Victor Kane appeared, his expression grim. "Mrs. Montana, there's been an incident. Mr. Montana asked me to bring you to him." "Is he hurt?" Fear clawed at Louise's throat. "He's alive. But you need to come now." The drive took 20 minutes, ending at a warehouse in the industrial district. Police lights flashed everywhere. Louise's blood ran cold. Victor led her through the chaos to where Marco stood, his white shirt stained with blood, talking to detectives. When he saw Louise, relief flooded his face. "You're okay." He moved to her, hands checking her for injuries. "You're not hurt?" "I'm fine." "Marco, what happened?" "The Volkovs made their move. They went after Danny." Louise's world tilted. "What?" "They tried to grab him from the estate. My security stopped them, but it was close. Too close." Marco's jaw clenched. "I had to send a message. Make it clear what happens when someone threatens my family. The blood, not mine. Dmitry Volkov's men. They won't be threatening anyone anymore." Marco's eyes were cold, the monster back. "No one touches my wife or her brother. No one." One of the detectives approached. Detective Sarah Chen, according to her badge. She looked at Louise with a mixture of pity and suspicion. "Mrs. Montana, I need to ask you some questions about tonight's events." "She doesn't know anything," Marco interjected. "She was home with her brother." "Let her speak for herself, Mr. Montana." Chen's voice was sharp. "Or are you afraid of what she might say?" "I was home," Louise confirmed. "I didn't know anything about this until Victor brought me here. Your father was James Bennett, one of our best." Chen studied Louise. "He'd be heartbroken to see you married to this man." The words struck deep because they were true. "My father is dead, detective, and I'm doing what I have to do to protect my brother." "By allying yourself with the exact kind of people who got your father killed?" "By surviving." Louise lifted her chin. "You want to judge me? Fine. But unless you can offer my brother protection and medical care and a future, then you have no right to criticize my choices." Chen's expression softened slightly. "Your father would be proud of your strength even if he'd hate the circumstances. Just be careful, Mrs. Montana. Men like your husband don't change. They just get better at hiding what they are." After Chen walked away, Marco pulled Louise close. "You didn't have to defend me. I wasn't defending you. I was defending my choice to marry you. There's a difference." But Louise's hand found his, fingers lacing together. "Is Danny really safe? I've quadrupled security. No one gets within a mile of the estate without me knowing." Marco's grip tightened. "I won't lose anyone else I care about. Not again. You care about Danny? I care about you both." Marco's voice was raw. "More than I should. More than is safe." They stood there in the flashing lights, blood and chaos surrounding them, and Louise realized with terrifying clarity that she was falling for her husband. This dangerous, damaged man who'd killed to protect her family, who held her through nightmares, who looked at her like she was precious. She was falling, and there was no stopping it. Your support means everything. Leave a like if this story moved you, comment your predictions for what's next, and subscribe to be part of our community. The Volkov situation exploded. For 2 weeks, the city was a war zone. Marco's men and the Russian Bratva clashed in the streets. 3 of Marco's warehouses burned. 2 of Dmitri's lieutenants disappeared. Louise watched her husband transform into someone colder, harder. He came home late every night, covered in blood and bruises, and collapsed into bed without speaking. Louise would clean his wounds in silence, neither of them acknowledging the intimacy of it. "This has to stop," she said one night, stitching a cut on his shoulder. "People are dying. Better his people than mine." Marco's voice was empty. "This is war, Louise. You don't stop until someone surrenders or someone dies. Which will it be?" "I don't know yet." The breaking point came on a Tuesday. Louise was reading in the library when Victor burst in, face ashen. "Mrs. Montana, they took him." "Who took who?" "The Volkovs. They have Mr. Montana. They're demanding you in exchange." The world stopped. "What?" "An hour ago. He was meeting with suppliers at the docks. It was an ambush. They killed 4 of our men and took him." Victor's hands shook. "Dmitri sent a message. He'll trade Marco for you. Says if you don't come within 12 hours, he'll send your husband back in pieces." Louise couldn't breathe. Marco. Captured. Being tortured. Because of her. "I'll go." "No." Victor grabbed her arm. "That's what they want. They kill you both and take everything." "Then what do we do?" "I don't know." For the first time, Victor looked lost. Mr. Montana always had the plans. Without him, we're flying blind. Louise's mind raced. She thought about her father, about how he would have handled this, about courage and sacrifice and doing what was right even when it terrified you. Call Detective Chen, the one from the warehouse that night. What? Mrs. Montana, we can't involve the police. Yes, we can, because Dmitry Volkov is trafficking humans. That's how my father died trying to stop him. If we give Chen that evidence, she'll have to act. The police will raid his compound, and we can get Marco out in the chaos. That's insane. It's our only option. Louise grabbed Victor's shoulders. Do you have evidence of the trafficking? Mr. Montana has files, insurance in case he ever needed to leverage the Volkovs. But if we turn that over, we're cooperating with police. It goes against everything the family stands for. The family stands for survival. Right now. That means saving Marco. Make the call. Victor stared at her for a long moment. Then he nodded. You're just like him, you know. That same stubborn courage that gets people killed. Then let's hope it gets people saved instead. 4 hours later, Louise sat across from Detective Chen, files spread between them. This is everything? Chen's eyes were wide. Dates, locations, victims. Everything my husband had on Dmitry Volkov's operation. You take this to a judge. You'll have enough for warrants on every property he owns. In exchange for what? You raid his compound at dawn. My husband is being held there. You get him out alive. And I'll testify to whatever you need about Marco's operations. Louise's voice didn't shake. Full cooperation. You'd betray your husband? I'd save his life. There's a difference. Louise met Chen's eyes. My father died trying to stop these monsters. Let me help finish what he started. Just please, save Marco. Chen studied her for a long moment. Your father would be proud. You know that, right? Not about the marriage, but about this, about standing up. I'm not sure pride is what I'm feeling right now. Mostly just terror. Good. That means you're smart. Chen gathered the files. We move at 0500. If your husband's there, we'll get him out. Thank you. Chen paused at the door. Mrs. Montana, be prepared for what happens after. Once we raid that compound, there's no going back. Your husband's world and the legal world will collide. Things are going to get very complicated. Detective, my entire life is already complicated. What's a little more? After Chen left, Louise sat in the darkness of Marco's study, praying she'd made the right choice, that she wasn't signing her husband's death warrant instead of saving him. Victor appeared. The files are gone. Chen's organizing the raid. We have to wait now. Then we wait. Louise's hands fisted in her lap. But if they hurt him? If Dmitry kills him before dawn, I'll burn his entire empire to the ground. Victor's lips quirked. You really are perfect for him. The hours crawled by. Louise couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. She paced Marco's study, touching his things, remembering his smile, his rare laughs, the way he held her. Please, she whispered to the universe. Please let him be okay. I'll do anything. Just let him live. At 4:55, her phone rang. Chen. We're moving in. Stay by your phone. I'll call as soon as we have him. Be careful. Dmitry's men are trained killers. So are we. The line went dead. Louise waited. 5 o'clock became 6. 6 became 7. No calls, no updates. Just silence. At 7:32, tires screeched outside. Louise ran to the window and saw Victor's car, followed by 2 ambulances. Her heart stopped. She was down the stairs and out the door before conscious thought kicked in. The ambulance doors opened. Marco was on a stretcher, bloody and barely conscious, but alive. Marco! Louise ran to him. His eyes found hers, and he smiled weakly. Hey, wife. Miss me? Then he passed out. The next 48 hours were a blur. Marco had 3 broken ribs, a concussion, multiple lacerations, and signs of severe beating. But he was alive. Louise didn't leave his hospital room once, sitting vigil by his bed while he slept. When he finally woke, clear-eyed and more himself, his first word was her name. Louise. I'm here. She grabbed his hand. I'm right here. You saved me. His voice was rough. Victor told me everything. You gave the police the files. Risked everything. I risked nothing compared to what I'd lose if you died. Tears streamed down her face. I couldn't let them kill you, Marco. I couldn't. You loved me. It wasn't a question. Louise froze. Did she? Was that what this terrifying feeling was? I don't know. Maybe. Probably. I'm still figuring it out. We'll figure it out faster. Marco's smile was weak but genuine. Because I'm in love with you, Louise Montana. Completely. Terrifyingly in love with you. And I need to know if there's any chance you could feel the same. You're in love with me. How could I not be? You're fierce and brave and good in a way I've never been. You make me want to be better. You saved my life by betraying everything this world stands for. So yes, I love you. And if you can't love me back, I understand. But I needed you to know. Louise leaned down and kissed him, gentle because of his injuries, but filled with everything she felt. When she pulled back, she was smiling through tears. I love you too. God help me. I love you, Marco Montana. God might not help you with that one. You've got terrible taste in men. The worst, Louise laughed. But you're mine, and I'm keeping you. Forever. Forever. They sealed it with another kiss, both of them knowing the storm was far from over. But at least they'd face it together. The fallout was immediate and devastating. With Dmitry Volkov in custody and his trafficking ring exposed, the power vacuum in the city's underworld exploded. Every small-time criminal and wannabe boss scrambled for territory. Marco's organization was caught in the crossfire. Louise watched her husband deteriorate over those first 3 weeks after the hospital. He barely slept, constantly on the phone with lieutenants who questioned his every decision. The man who'd held her so tenderly was buried under layers of stress and frustration. Half my suppliers are too scared to work with me now, Marco said one morning, staring at his laptop with bloodshot eyes. He was recovered physically from his injuries. The bruises faded to yellow-green, the cuts healing into thin scars. But the stress showed in the lines around his eyes, the tension in his shoulders, the way he'd started drinking bourbon at noon. The other half think I'm weak because I needed my wife and the police to save me. You're not weak. Louise set down her coffee and moved to stand behind his chair, her hands on his shoulders. She could feel the knots of tension there. You were ambushed and captured by a dozen armed men. There's no shame in that. In my world, there is. Marco reached up to cover her hand with his, but his voice was hollow. Perception is everything, Louise. And right now, I'm perceived as a man who couldn't protect himself, who needed a woman to save him, who cooperated with the police. Every one of those things makes me look weak in the eyes of people who only respect strength. Then their respect isn't worth having. Maybe not, but it's what keeps this organization running. It's what keeps us safe. Marco rubbed his face, exhaustion written in every line. I'm losing control, Louise. My men are questioning my leadership. Some are already jumping ship to other organizations. 2 of my most trusted lieutenants met with the Torino family yesterday. Victor told me they're exploring their options. The empire I built is crumbling, and I don't know how to stop it. Then let it crumble. The words came out before Louise could stop them, but once she said them, she knew they were right. Marco's head snapped up, his blue eyes widening. What? Let it crumble. Walk away. Start over in something legitimate. Louise moved to sit beside him on the couch, taking both his hands in hers. You have the money, the connections, the intelligence. You could build something legal, something good, something Julia would have been proud of. It's not that simple. Marco's voice was strained. This is all I know, Louise. This life, these rules. I've been a criminal my entire adult life, since I was 17 years old and my father introduced me to his associates. This world is in my blood. Then get it out. Louise squeezed his hands. Replace it with something better. You told me once that Julia wanted to be a doctor, to help people. Honor her memory by doing the same. Not with medicine, but with whatever gifts you have. What would I even do? Marco looked lost, and Louise's heart ached for him. I understand supply chains and logistics and how to intimidate people into doing what I want. Those skills don't exactly translate to a 9-to-5 office job. You're brilliant with strategy and negotiation. You see patterns and opportunities others miss. You understand complex systems and how to make them more efficient. Louise pulled up his earlier business analysis on her phone, the one he'd done for fun when helping her understand farm economics. Remember what you said about farm-to-table supply chains? About how small farms get squeezed out by corporate middlemen who take all the profit? You laid out a whole strategy for disrupting that system, helping small operations compete with big agriculture. You did that in one afternoon because you were bored. Marco stared at the notes on her phone, his expression shifting from hopeless to thoughtful. That was just talk, a thought experiment. So make it real. Partner with me. We use your business expertise and my connections to local farms. Build something that actually helps people instead of hurting them. Louise's voice grew more passionate. You know how many family farms are drowning right now? How many are one bad season away from losing everything? We could change that, Marco. We could actually make a difference. You want me to become a farmer? There was disbelief in his voice, but also something else. Interest, hope. I want you to become someone you can be proud of when you look in the mirror. Someone Julia would have loved. Someone your sister would have been excited to introduce to her Stanford classmates as her successful, legitimate businessman brother. Louise's voice softened, her thumb tracing circles on the back of his hand. You told me you became a monster after she died. What if instead, you became the man she always believed you could be? The man she saw potential in before the world broke you? For a long moment, Marco said nothing. Louise watched emotions war across his face, fear and hope and grief all tangled together. Then tears spilled down his cheeks, and he didn't try to hide them this time. I don't know if I can. I've done so many terrible things, Louise. I've hurt people, killed people, destroyed families. There's so much blood on my hands that I don't know if I can ever wash it clean. Then do good things now. Enough good to balance the scales, even if they never fully balance. Louise wiped his tears with her thumbs, cradling his face. Every day you spend helping others is a day you're not hurting them. Every family farm you save is a life you've improved instead of destroyed. It won't erase the past, but it can change the future. It doesn't work like that. His voice broke. Redemption isn't real, Louise. Some sins are too deep to forgive. Maybe not, but it's a start. Louise pressed her forehead to his. I love you, Marco. Not the mob boss, not the criminal empire, not the fear and power. Just you. The man who takes care of my brother like he's your own family. Who holds me when I cry. Who's trying so hard to be better even when it terrifies you. That's who I fell in love with. That's the man I see when I look at you. Build a life that person deserves. Build the life Julia would have wanted you to have. Marco pulled her close, burying his face in her hair, his body shaking with silent sobs. You really think I can do this? Walk away from everything? From the only life I've ever known? I know you can. Because you're the strongest person I've ever met. You survived losing your parents. You survived losing Julia. You survived torture and betrayal and a war that should have killed you. This is just another battle. And this time, you don't have to fight it alone. I'm with you, Marco, every step of the way. The decision wasn't made overnight. Marco spent weeks meeting with his remaining lieutenants, carefully dividing up territory, negotiating the sale of illegal operations to competitors who'd pay fair prices. Some called him a traitor, threatened violence, swore revenge. Others understood, even respected the choice. Victor remained fiercely loyal, transitioning to head of security for their new legitimate venture. I didn't follow you for the money or the power, Victor said when Marco offered him a way out. I followed you because you're the most loyal man I've ever known. If you're building something good now, then that's what I want to be part of. The transition was brutal. Marco had to cut ties with people he'd known for decades, walk away from operations that had made him millions, accept the scorn and mockery of those who saw legitimate business as weak. There were days he almost gave up, almost called it all off and returned to the comfortable familiarity of crime. But Louise was always there, reminding him why they were doing this, showing him the farm families they were already helping with preliminary planning. letting him see Danny's excitement as he learned about agricultural economics and supply chain management. 3 months later, Montana Bennett Agricultural Solutions officially launched with a press conference that drew national media attention. The reformed mob boss turning legitimate was a story too good to pass up. Louise fielded questions with grace while Marco stood beside her, uncomfortable in the spotlight but determined. "Mr. Montana, why should farmers trust someone with your background?" a reporter asked. Marco met the camera directly. "They shouldn't, not at first. Trust is earned through action, not words. What I can promise is that I understand how broken systems exploit the vulnerable. I've seen it from both sides now, and I'm committed to building something better. If farmers want to work with us, great. If not, I understand. I'll prove myself through results." And the results came. Marco's business connections, combined with Louise's agricultural knowledge and genuine relationships with farming communities, proved a powerful combination. They signed contracts with 12 small farms in the first month, providing them with resources, market access, and fair prices that let them compete with corporate agriculture. Danny became their technology consultant, building a website and social media presence that attracted national attention. His passion for the project was infectious, and watching him thrive gave Marco purpose he'd never felt in his criminal life. "This is amazing," Danny said one evening, 6 months in, showing them the latest numbers. His speech was clearer now, his physical therapy finally producing the results they'd hoped for. "You've helped these families increase their profits by 40% on average." 40%, Marco. That's life-changing money for them. And look at these messages. He pulled up emails and social media posts, farmers thanking them for literally saving their generational farms from foreclosure. Children writing to say their parents were smiling again, that they didn't have to sell the family land anymore. "Lou, Dad would be so proud of this, of you both." Louise looked at Marco, who was reviewing contracts, his platinum hair falling over his forehead as he worked. He'd kept the tattoos, the rings, the gold cross. Those were part of who he was, but the coldness in his eyes had softened. The weight on his shoulders had eased. "Yeah," Louise said softly. "I think he would be." That night, as they lay in bed together, Marco pulled Louise close. They'd been sharing a room for 2 months now, the pretense of separate lives long abandoned. "I got something for you." He reached into his nightstand and pulled out a small box. Inside was a ring. Not the diamond monstrosity he'd given her for their wedding, but a simple platinum band engraved with coordinates. "What are these numbers?" Louise studied them. "The location where we first met, the Crimson Rose." Marco's voice was soft. "The night my life changed. I want you to have something that represents our real beginning. Not the forced marriage, but the moment I started falling in love with you, even though I didn't know it yet." Louise's eyes burned with happy tears. "Marco Montana, are you being romantic? Don't spread it around. I've got a reputation to maintain." But his smile was genuine. "Marry me again, Louise. For real this time. No contracts, no obligations. Just you and me choosing each other. We're already married. Then renew our vows. In front of people we actually care about, not criminals and associates. Your father's old police friends, Danny's therapists, the farmers we're working with, people who represent the life we're building together." "Yes," Louise kissed him. 1,000 times yes. The second wedding took place 6 months later in a small church where Louise's parents had married. Danny stood as best man, beaming with pride. Detective Chen attended, having become an unexpected friend. Even Mrs. Chen from the estate came, crying happy tears. Marco wore a simple black suit. No flashy jewelry except the cross pendant he never removed. Louise wore a cream dress, simple and elegant. When they exchanged vows this time, every word was true. "I promise to stand by you," Marco said, his voice steady, "to protect you and Danny with everything I have, to build a life worthy of your love, to be the man Julia believed I could be and the man your father would have approved of. I love you, Louise. You saved me in every way a person can be saved. I promise to believe in you," Louise replied, tears streaming. "To push you to be better while loving exactly who you are. to build this crazy dream with you. To honor my father's memory by choosing to see the good in people, even when it's hard. I love you, Marco. You gave me hope when I had none left. They sealed it with a kiss, and this time there was no pretense. Just two people who'd found each other in the darkest circumstances and chosen to build something beautiful from the ashes. The reception was held at a farm they'd partnered with, under string lights and open sky. Danny gave a speech that had everyone laughing and crying. Victor toasted to new beginnings. Detective Chen pulled Louise aside. Your father would be proud. I mean it. You took someone dangerous and helped them become someone good. That's more than most people accomplish in a lifetime. I didn't change him, Louise corrected. He chose to change. I just gave him a reason to try. Later, as Louise and Marco danced under the stars, he whispered, Any regrets? About what? Marrying the criminal who forced you into this. If you could go back, would you change it? Louise looked up at her husband. This man who'd been her enemy, then her unwanted spouse, then her unexpected love. This man who'd walked away from power to build something meaningful. This man who loved her brother like his own. This man who made her laugh and held her when she cried and pushed her to be braver than she'd known she could be. No, she said firmly. I wouldn't change a single thing. Because every terrible moment led me here, to you, to us, to this life we're building together. I love you, Louise Montana. I love you too, Marco Montana. Forever. They swayed together as Danny's laugh rang out somewhere nearby, as their friends celebrated around them. As the future stretched ahead, full of possibility, Louise had walked into Marco's world to save her brother. She'd stayed to save herself, and in the process, she'd saved the man she loved from the darkness that had consumed him. Two damaged souls finding healing in each other. A forced marriage becoming a true partnership. A monster discovering his humanity. A woman learning that love could bloom even in the darkest soil. This was their story, and it was only the beginning, the end.